In this session, we're going to review invoicing accounts payable items that are non-purchase order related. So these would be items where you get maybe for a car lease, insurance, rent, those kind of things where you're not getting a purchase order association. So it's still accounts payable entry. We're going to go in here, but in the AP ID, whereas before we looked up a PO number, now we're just going to hit enter and let it assign the next sequential voucher number. A voucher number is nothing more than a record ID in this procedure. So we would put in the voucher number, or leave it blank and let it assign the voucher number. We would pick our vendor that we want. And again, you can look up vendors by wildcard or vendor name or street address, etc. Or I could type in all and I find all the words, all the vendors that have all in their name. I'll pick that top one. And then we would just go down through the items and we'd say this is the invoice number the vendor sent us. This is the invoice date. Maybe it was yesterday. Register date, invoice date and register date. Again, the invoice date is the date on the paperwork. It's the date the vendor is dating that invoice. The register date is the period you want this to hit the general ledger. Most commonly, this will be the same because you're in the middle of the month, etc. This only comes into play when you have a month-end process where maybe the vendor sent you something on the last day of the month, 5/31. You didn't get it until 6/5, and you've already closed May, and you don't want to put anything back into that period. You can still put the invoice date in as May and the register date in as June, and that way you're satisfying the vendor's need to see the aging, and you're satisfying your need to hit the appropriate general ledger period. So in this case, we'd have a $250 invoice what they sent us for something. You can reference a PO, although it's a reference field at this point only. So now what we have to do on the header here is we have to distribute that $250 before it will allow us to save this record. Now you can go, I don't recommend this, but you can go to the line items and use this for the distribution and put in part numbers and all that stuff. Although that will not update inventory. It is only referenced when you're in the AP item. So we have to put in freight and or sales tax and or one or more miscellaneous amounts. So we could say, I want to put in $150 against some expense account number. We'll call it auto expense. And I want to put in the other $100 against a different expense account number, maybe travel expense. And so I get a total of the $250. As long as the $250 invoice amount is fully distributed between the freight and the tax and the amount, we're good to go and we can save this record. Now, note in the information in the upper left, right-hand corner here, the status is open. Balance due is $250. That's the amount we owe. And the amount to pay is currently scheduled at $250 on 7/16, which is 30 days from the invoice date. So the due date is 7/16. That makes the date to pay 7/16. If you want to be able to control these and say, I want to run a payroll, an accounts payable check run on 7/10, you can override this and put in a 7/10 date and control that yourself. You can do that. At this point, we're going to leave this at 7/16. And down here in the bottom right, we can see that any checks that have been run against this item, and we can put it on hold and we can put any notes we want in here. But as long as we have these pieces of information, we're all done. We hit save. We get a voucher number of 2228, and that's the voucher number for this AP item. And once we hit save, it's done. We're all done. There's no posting step. It all posts and enters all in one step. If you need to bring that thing back up and make any changes to it, you can do that. You can close it out. You can reduce it to 0. You could even do a file delete if you've got the security rights to be able to delete a record. Some people turn that off completely because they don't like deleting records. Other people use it in case there was a duplicate entry of some kind and they wanted to try to avoid that. At this point, this is a valid AP item. It will show up in the check run the next time I want to run a check run. This will show up as a valid item to be paid. And that's entering accounts payable for a miscellaneous invoice. Thank you.